Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome, welcome, and thank you so much for joining me this evening, this beautiful Sunday evening, 31st of the 10th, 2021, all the way from the UK, London. Of course, when we are in London, we're on top of the world. But as I'm in London, I'm still in Jamaica as well and touching on wonderful things. Well, listen, ladies and gentlemen, tonight is Sunday night. And my Sunday night, what I'm trying to do is to make sure I touch onto some really empowering and powerful discussions with persons all over the world. Thank you for joining on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. And as you join, I will also ask you as well to join in and to share the links as well. It's going to be on YouTube. Those on Instagram, if you see me on Instagram, you only can see my face. But if you want to see the guest, Mr. Kenyama Brown, you will have to go on to YouTube or Facebook, SYLBOURNE TV, SYLBOURNE TV, and SYLBOURNE TV. Now, without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, Black History Month. We're on the end of Black History Month. Today is the 31st, so I say let me leave with a bang. Why leave with a bang? Because sometimes we are all going around in circles, and I'm talking about empowerment, economic empowerment of the African diaspora. That's my topic tonight, economic empowerment of the African diaspora UK. Okay. Now, my guest tonight is Mr. Kenyama Brown. Kenyama Brown is the Minister of Foreign Affairs, State of African Diaspora, SOAD, SOAD, Deputy Executive of the Chairman of the Jamaica Lumineers Secretariat, JLS. And he's a bilingualist, has a wealth of knowledge and experience in leadership, culture, history, politics, youth development, and music, among others. His astuteness in varying situations has no doubt highlighted him as an ideal candidate to serve as a representative on committees and board both at the national and international level. Kenyama is a true ambassador of empowering the Black race both on the African continent and in the diaspora. He's a husband and a father of two children who enjoy traveling, sports, politics, language, and voluntary service. Well, before I go any further, I'm just going to bring in Mr. Brown. Let him just finish it off. Sir Brown, how are you doing, sir?
I'm fine. Good afternoon, and from where you are, I suspect it's good night. So
Yes,
yes,
it's good
I'm
night.
happy to be here.
Well, I'm
Yes,
grateful that the
thank you
powers
for
that
that.
be. Well, I'm grateful that the powers that be brought my time back, so we got an extra hour in. You know what I mean?
Indeed, indeed.
Yeah. So, how is it
Yes.
over there in Jamaica, sir?
It Jamaica is it has its fair share of challenges, but
Yes.
it's still our island home, and we still love it. And as much as things may happen on a day-to-day basis that are not necessarily to our liking, we still love Jamaica. I always say that Jamaica is a place that makes it very hard for us to love it, but
Mm.
we love it nonetheless.
Well, there's a new saying, sir, that Netflix need to move across and move aside because we now have Jamflix.
Jamflix, that's correct.
Jamflix is live and direct, and every day there's something new coming out of Jamaica, and it's Jamflix, you know. But I tell you what, while Netflix may have all of its entertainment, for the Jamflix tonight, we're going to talk about economic empowerment. So I like to spin things. So even though they say Jamaica is not a real place, I'm going to say what we're going to talk about is real,
Yes, yes,
Mr.
it
Brown.
is.
It
Yes.
is real. And we're going to talk about Lumi. But first of all, you're a minister, Minister of Foreign Affairs in the state of African diaspora. Can you elaborate on that? Set the stage, sir. And correct me wherever I'm wrong. Yeah.
Well, before I go, just touching on what you had mentioned earlier.
Yes.
Um, the thing that is remarkable about Jamaica and Jamaicans is that despite all the challenges that we have domestically, it has never relieved us of our role to play a role in enhancing the welfare of the whole human race. So,
Mm.
despite whatever it is taking place, it is still my point of duty that I still need to do my bit to give that contribution. So, for me, in doing so, my vehicle is SOAD. And what is SOAD?
Yes.
SOAD essentially was formed as per the Charter of the African Union. So it was then the founding fathers of the African Union has stipulated that there was to be a state of the African diaspora, which would be a body that encapsulated all of the African diaspora. Um, it was to be the sixth region because Africa is divided in five regions, which is north, south, east, west, and central. So it was deemed that the diaspora represented that sixth region. So SOAD would be that body, that state that would encapsulate all of the diaspora. So it was always on the chart, and not until 2017 that the then head of the African Union, I believe, is Matarasi, and the name slips with
Yes.
not so well pronouncing it, but he was then the head of Mauritania. And he sought to operationalize that aspect of the treaty. So he looked for Dr. Louis George Tin, who then was the head of a major black advocacy organization in France, I believe it's CRAN, and invited him to start the movement. And he has since started it. He structured it in the form of a government where you have an executive, which is essentially the prime minister, two vice prime ministers. You do have a cabinet with ministers of varying portfolios, mine being Minister of Foreign Affairs, and you also have a parliament, which has members of parliaments, and you do also. And SOAD takes in a lot of persons from the diaspora, but also some persons on the continent, because the view is to really operationalize that aspect of the treaty. It will also require working in conjunction with persons from the continent. So that is essentially what we have managed to do. As you know, the head of the African Union is a revolving leadership, kind of similar to what we've been accustomed to in CARICOM, where for specified periods of time, different heads of the different Caribbean states assume leadership of our regional bodies. So it's the same for Africa. So as you see on the screen there, you would see Dr. Tim and Ketura Moko and Mr. Hugh Johnson, who is also the president. So we do have SOAD, which represent the state without borders. Currently, we are an organization. However, plans are in an advanced state for us to do an official application to the United Nations for us to be granted status as a official state without borders. Those preparations are at an advanced stage, but as you know, as the old adage says, while the grass grows, the horse will starve. So despite us doing that, we are still have a program of work that we continue to do. So just like in Africa, where the structure is essentially each of the regions, whether it be the Western states, they form together ECOWAS, which is the West African states. So we in the diaspora, there is a similar setup that is considered ECO 6. And ECO 6 was formed as per a treaty, which was to represent that economic bloc for the sixth region, or one could say the diaspora. And the chairman of it is none other than Timothy McPherson, and the president is one of the vice prime ministers of SOAD, Mr. Hugh Johnson.
Yes.
And under ECO 6, you would have first and foremost SOAD being the state, and then it takes in a lot of the indigenous communities, such as the Maroons. Some of the Maroon communities, initially when it was formed, it had all of the Maroon communities being a part of it. Now I understand that due to certain aspects, certain disquiet that is taking place, I believe we perhaps can claim to have two, from the Maroon community in Jamaica. But as per Suriname, where there's a Maroon community, they are full members of ECO 6. We have also the Quilombos in Brazil. They are full members. We have also the Paninques in Colombia. They are also full members. So it is an all-encompassing body. And as per the charter of ECO 6, the Prime Minister of SOAD is automatically the Secretary General of Eco 6. So
And
that
that's
is
the
essentially
that,
the
that's
structure.
and that's the Eco 6 which I've up there on the screen there. Yes.
That is correct. That is the structure.
Mm.
Another fundamental component of Eco 6 is the African Diaspora Central Bank, which was formerly a central solar reserve bank of a compound. And this is essentially the central bank that oversees the operation of the Lumi. And this is a very good time for us to now segue, because what it is really telling you is that first and foremost, I can declare that the Lumi is not a cryptocurrency. It has
Yes.
a central bank that has been
Be-
set up that
Yeah.
oversees its operation.
Before we touch on to the Lumi, let's go back into. I noticed you mentioned a compound.
Yes.
Yes, and when I hear a compound, I'm thinking about the Maroons in
Yes, yes,
Jamaica.
that's correct.
Is that
Mhm.
the same a compound we are talking about?
That's the same compound. That's
Same.
correct. Yes.
So that's so it's so the Maroons and their compound is a part of the Genesis.
They are part of the genesis of the
Mm,
Lumi. That is correct.
right.
It is. The reality is the creator of the Lumi, Mr. Timothy McPherson,
Yes.
he was born in Canada, of Jamaican parents, and in fact, his mother is Maroon. Actually, she's from
Mm,
Nanitown in Portland. So by virtue of that, that makes him a Maroon. He grew up in Germany and worked for several years in the financial banking and financial system um, across Europe. So he has a very adept knowledge of. He is professionally considered a financial engineer,
yes.
and so he's decided to start the Lumi in the Maroon communities,
Mm,
and it saw its genesis there. And like anything else, he tried moving out and trying to make connections with our very own central bank, BOJ, and that wasn't happening. I think to further compound a situation that became a little tenuous is that there were some upheavals that also came to the fore in
mm,
some of the Maroon communities, most unfortunately, and it created some unfortunate situations. But the truth of it is, I always say that it saw its genesis in the Maroon communities, but
yes.
it has now transcended that.
Because
And
I did see something along the way when I was doing my research that
yes,
the newly elected a compound chief in Jamaica, Mr. Curry, reportedly, and I like to use those words reportedly because sometimes people say things what is not so, distance himself and the Maroons. He leads and sent a little bit from the Lumi and the entities back at insurance. He indicated that such activities occurred under a previous Maroon. I presume that's Mr. Timothy
yes.
McPherson, yes?
No, no. Well, the truth,
Oh,
Timothy McPherson was never the previous Maroon chief or compound,
ah,
but
yes,
a lot
yes.
of what was developed was under the previous chief, and
Mm,
he came in and maybe he's of a different view and
yes,
what he believes is best for his people, and so on. He went forward and issued all of the statements that he said, and I believe it's within his right to do.
yes,
Um, Unfortunate, I believe, and it has since moved beyond him and anything else, which the Lumi saw its genesis in the Maroon communities, but it has now taken on greater proportions, and it has gone onto the African continent, and most fortunately,
yes,
the African Kingdoms Federation, which many people must understand that within Africa, the power structure is there is the political leadership at the political level, but at one would say at the local level, you have the chiefs, the kingdoms. That, for example, in Ghana, you would know that you have a Ashanti kingdom. In South
yes,
Africa, you know of the Zulu kingdom. These are kingdoms that still exist, that still control and have a tremendous amount of power. And even the political structures still respect the kingdoms.
mm,
So all of the kingdoms amalgamated, you have the African Kingdoms Federation. And
yes,
within it, as you know, there's always breakaways. So There's also the United Kingdoms Federation,
Mm.
and I believe there is the Embo Kingdom that
Yes.
is not a part of either. But most interestingly, all three have recognized the Lumi as their official currency. So that is most interesting that I say that. And it only speaks volumes to the work that has been done with the Lumi, and it is now moving forward and taking on greater strength and greater proportion, as I've said before.
I guess what I'm picking up as well is that, as with any new sort of venture, anything which is very innovative, anything that cuts across and challenges the status quo will also have backlash. Because I realize that the Bank of Jamaica, in an article, said
As is
has
your
a
statement.
has a gain. You see well, I missed the first one, but it has a
Mm.
gain
Yeah,
raised
it's your
concerns
statement.
about the Lumi, a larger concept currency issued by the African kingdom. That's certain.
Mm-hmm.
I think we should be excited when something is issued by the
They,
African kingdom, isn't it?
what is most interesting, and again, it's unfortunate, but
Yeah.
it is almost something that you have grown to understand that
Mm,
it is as if it seems to be something that is common in Jamaica, that we frown upon our own innovation.
mm,
So when a Marcus Garvey innovated with political thought and Pan-Africanist views, we frowned upon him. He
mm,
left, went to America, and he formed a black organization of a following of 10 to 15 million blacks. Um, when Amali innovated with reggae music in the kind of way that we needed to spread reggae music
yes.
globally, he was equally frowned upon.
Yes.
Um, and many others that we could speak of. And I guess the saying is, maybe if you're not frowned upon by your own, maybe you're not doing something. And I think
Yes.
that's really just the only way I could see it. And it's just an unfortunate thing that has happened throughout our history. And
Mm,
but again, when you have a purpose, when you have a very important work to do, you can't be sidetracked. You have to continue. So I think I have to Mr. McPherson's credit. He has
mm.
continued to work because the work that he has to do is extremely important.
And I guess he personally,
Unfortunately,
yeah.
what I could say is that in Jamaica, one of the world's first digital currencies developed in Jamaica.
Mm,
So rather than embracing it on our own, we frown upon it. Um, I can see now that BOJ is trying to embark on their own digital currency now, way how many years after the fact.
yes.
I guess it's within
It,
their right to do, but such is life.
it sounds a bit similar to marijuana, whereby Jamaicans have been creating marijuana for years, and now it's taken a different proportion. Um,
Yes.
the powers that be are trying to capitalize on it as well. The whole thing about the Lumi, and as you were, and as for ladies and gentlemen, just for clarification again, the Lumi is not a cryptocurrency,
Currency. It's
you know,
not.
and that is something the AKL Lumi refuses categorization as a cryptocurrency. It is underwritten by 100 kilowatts of solar energy. Break that down for persons who are maybe querying this Lumi, the underwritten by 100 kilowatts of solar energy.
What the Lumi seeks to have is a different approach to its valuation.
Mm,
On usually other forms of currency are pegged to either gold or whatever other precious element. For example, the Kuwaiti dinar. It's linked to the petroleum industry, and even in the United Arab Emirates, their currency is linked to that. The thinking behind the Lumi is a innovative approach, which is to peg the currency to 100 kilowatt hours of
yes.
of solar energy, and also it's equivalent to a certain amount of grain in gold. Many of
Mm,
the African kingdoms have pledged their gold that they have in their reserves to also back the currency. Unlike
yes.
anything else, it's going to be market driven, and it's
Mm,
going to be driven by the whole concept of demand and supply. So, but the innovation behind solar energy is because
yes.
if we understand where resources are going, fossil fuel as we know it is seeing its last days. I don't know if it has 15 years left.
Mm.
And the clearest indication of this, the Saudis, who are the major producers of petroleum in the world, they have long gone into
Yeah.
alternative energy. And much evidence is there showing that they have invested a tremendous amount of resources behind alternative energy. And again, Africa is coming out, showing the world that it has a resource that the world needs, and it again has it in abundance. Because which continent has the most sunlight in the world? It's
Mm.
Africa. And there are other examples of showing you, and that gives send the clearest signal of the direction the world is going. For example, a company such as H2 Industries out of Germany, they have developed a technology that harnesses the energy of the sun
Yes.
in a liquefied and storable form, that you can now store your solar energy through the use of liquid hydrogen, store it in a storable form in tanks that can be transported. So this is an innovation for the future, which is telling you that solar energy will be just like your fossil fuel.
Yes.
So
Yes.
there is tremendous opportunities that are afoot. So
So yeah. So tell us now. So we got Sword, which set the state, set the base, which is the state of the African diaspora, and now we've got Lumi, which is going to be that engine that can actually work in an economical way to strengthen the African community. Because from my idea, my knees, and then from I came to the UK, around a lot of guys talking about the African diaspora, talk about reparation, repatriation, and everything like that. Um, is this somewhat like a key vehicle that can see some dreams becoming a reality? Because we have been talking, it's been going around in circles, like a deja vu, isn't it? It's like a deja
yes,
vu.
yes, yes. The truth is, it's going to take a number of initiatives that will really create that
Mm.
connection. But what I can say is that for what the Lumi represents, and for what it has been doing, and what it continues to do, and what we see on the horizon to be
Yes.
done, is it is going to play a major role.
Mm.
And I say that because if we backtrack a little bit to look on what Marcus Garvey's program was with the UNIA,
Yes.
it was really doing the same thing, trying to strengthen the ties between the African diaspora and the continent through
Yes.
economic activity and economic empowerment.
Yes.
And and he sought to do this through economic activities, businesses of the UNIA, investments in shipping and trade and all of these things, which we know how it worked out. The Lumi will be an instrument to facilitate trade amongst the
Mm.
communities. Now, one major thing before I go any further, which I believe is important I mention,
Mm.
is that one major occurrence that took place for the African continent was the signing in 2020 of the African Free Trade Area Agreement, which is essentially, it's a major paradigm shift, because what it represents is that for the first time in its history, the African continent now has a clear mechanism that facilitates trade amongst the African continent. And in
Mm.
addition to that, just as what the European Union did, they had to establish a central bank for all the central banks of the different territories, and also a financial regulatory authority to certainly regulate financial activities.
Mm.
And they have created a similar structure. And this structure has officially recognized the African kingdom's Lumi as a currency. So that is a major achievement that I believe it's important I mention. But on the domestic level, what the Lumi represents, and it's going to be funny that I'm going to draw a parallel now.
Yes.
For the Asian communities, as you know, Bitcoin, which is the major flagship cryptocurrency that the world knows, it
Yes.
was started by someone by the name of Satoshi Nakamoto Nobody has ever seen him, but
Wow.
it is said that it was started in the Asian, in sort of in Korea, and it started there as a means by which people traded amongst themselves. And it started there until it went into their diaspora, and it continued to trade until the forces of demand and supply
Yes.
took over. So the Lumi has a tremendous opportunity to do this very same thing.
Mm-hmm.
And the difference is that we have a central bank that oversees the operation. So the distribution and the circulation of this can be done in a more uniform way, as opposed to how Bitcoin really moved from strength to strength. So
Yes.
there is tremendous opportunities. And for the African communities, this is going to be a game changer. And why I say so? Because one thing that harmonizes all African communities of the world, doesn't matter if it's in North America, Central America, the
Yes.
Caribbean, continent, South America, wherever, there is one commonality with all African communities. And do you know what that is? It is money never stays in these communities.
Right.
So if you draw parallels with the Jewish community, with the Chinese, the Asian, Indians, you would realize that if we do any sound research, we realize that whenever money goes into these communities, it circulates on average for 30 days. But
Yes.
if you do a research for any African community, doesn't matter where in the world, there's one common feature:
Mm.
money never stays. It lasts 6 hours. And this is because we have not primarily developed instruments to facilitate ways in which we can trade amongst ourselves.
Yes.
And the Lumi presents this very unique opportunity for us to do so.
Now that is very powerful. Mr. Brown, I keep always referring to you in my mind, but it never comes out as Dr. Brown, believe it or not. I don't know if you know, but it always
Well,
comes out.
I've secured that PhD as yet.
But at the end of the day, even just what I just said, I think we also have to empower ourselves and give ourselves things, because we always allow the Europeans to confer things upon us, and we always say sometimes, yes, I've now made it because I've been ratified or
And
verified
recognized,
and
yes,
recognized by the European. But at the same time, we need to also recognize
precisely,
ourselves, the impact of ourselves. And right, as you said
precisely.
earlier, Marcus Garvey, this is like exactly what Marcus Garvey was trying to do. But I have to ask this
He
question, and this
said
is
the
a key
same
question.
things.
This is a key question everyone always asks. What is it then that stops or will prevent or will empower the Black community to really work together on this project? Because every day there's something being created. I know I said it earlier when I said the deja vu, but I've been around for a bit now, even though I'm not been around for too long, to see that we're going around in circles. We need to really press on and move forward.
That's a very good question, but I will respond in this way.
Mm,
If we are to continue to live with despair, that
mm.
doesn't matter what we try, we will always fail, then we will
Yes, sir.
always perpetually fail. And if our foreparents who were enslaved felt that achieving freedom was an elusive dream, then I would guarantee it that we would still be in shackles today.
Yes,
And I
yes.
think some of us just really have to be stubborn. Some of us have to
Mm,
believe that there is a higher calling and there's a higher cause that we need to fight for. And
yes,
this is simply just one of them. And the fact is, what is needed is for us in the diaspora to have stronger connections with the
yes,
continent. And one such thing, which, as you know, I'm a part of the Jamaica Lumineers Secretariat,
yes,
which is essentially an offshoot of SOAD. And it's really a special purpose vehicle to handle matters of Eco 6 and SOAD in Jamaica. And we work carefully, we work conscientiously, we understand what is out there, certainly with BOJ saying what they're saying. We understand some of the disquiet in certain parts of the Maroon communities, not all. And we navigate all these waters,
Yes.
because some of us have to be firm believers in that we need to press on with something that is of tremendous importance to our race.
Mm.
So we are steadily doing what we have to do. And one such major events that we are putting forward is that we are embarking on an inaugural flight
Mm.
to Ghana. Now, this flight has serious implications for us, because what it represents is one of the first flights leaving the Caribbean, leaving the diaspora directly into the continent. And
Yes.
we're doing this because it is an initiative we feel very strongly about, which is we want to create that connection between the diaspora and the continent. So if you asked me earlier, how
Mm.
can we raise the consciousness in the diaspora? Well, the only way we can do so is by bringing the diaspora to the continent and bringing the continent to the
Mm.
diaspora. So we are seeking to embark on this first flight to go to Ghana. And this
Yes.
flight is significant, and I think it's also timely, because it is also at a time, and it is harmonizing with Ghana's launch of the Year of Return. And I
Mm.
think Ghana is also embarking on some groundbreaking legislation, which is to
Yes.
fast track citizenship for many of the lost children of the diaspora to come back to Ghana.
Yes.
And I think what we are seeking to do is to embark on a trip to go into Ghana. And this trip, we are pulling persons not just from academia, we're pulling persons from the
Mm.
agricultural sector, from the private sector in Jamaica, because we want to create strong links. So it's not just about sightseeing and knowing where our foreparents went through before they came to
Yes.
these parts. Is that we also want to create connections and to show people, to open their eyes, that
Mm.
Africa is not simply just a place that, unfortunately, Western media has not really portrayed Africa in with the kind of images that one would see as positive.
Yes.
We want to take people to the continent and say, there is Africa. Yes, there's some bad, but there's a tremendous amount of good that can be, I don't want to say exploit, because it
Mm.
may have the wrong connotation, but
Mm.
it is for us to take advantage of,
Can
both
I, can I,
for us, but
yeah.
also for the continent.
Yeah. Can I just ask a question? And for, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining, and those on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. I'm with um as I keep saying, I stutter all the while because I want to say Dr. Brown. I've got Kenyama Brown from Jamaica, who is the Minister of Foreign Affairs in the State of African Diaspora, and also one of the architect with the Lumi, pushing the Lumi. What if a person's contact? Okay, this is actually true. Somebody contacted me a couple of weeks ago and said to me, I'm concerned about Jamaica. I'm concerned about United States of America. I'm thinking of Africa. They got their property in Jamaica. They're in the States, and they just want to keep their mind open, and they want to consider Africa. What can this trip do for them? And mark you, they are in the USA. They're not in Jamaica, even though
Well,
they're. Yeah.
I do hope that when
Mm.
this interview ends, I'll be able to circulate some of the information. You may put it on the screen for
Yes.
them to see, to get in contact with, or the Secretariat here in Jamaica, because they
Yes.
can be a part of this flight. We still have space.
Mm.
Space is left. Um, this flight should leave November 19th, and we are going to be there until December 1st. There are
Mm.
still spaces, so they can contact us as best as they can. But
Yeah.
my own view is, I had the opportunity to visit the continent. My first visit to the continent was in 2017,
Yes.
and my first stop was Kenya. And in another sphere, in another life, I'm a part of the management team that manages the reggae artist Richie Spice. And at that time, we went to Kenya on invitation of the government at the time, and we did a number of events, and that was all of what we did, was to culminate in a major concert, and just to see what the outpouring of love and the fan base that the artist has in Kenya, it was tremendous. It was mind blowing. But for me, going to the continent for the first time, I remember when I disembarked from the plane, I really knelt down on my knees and I kissed the ground and I said, Mama Africa, your son has come home. And it was a feeling that something, I felt something in my body turn, and it was a feeling that I can't really describe in words, but it was a life altering experience. And I would also want anyone to experience that too. And so maybe that was a precursor to me being in SWOT today. But what I also noticed is I believe there needs to be greater links in between the continent, because for an artist such as Richie Spice, he may not see the kind of record sales that he needs to see because maybe we focus our energies on North American, European markets to push our reggae music. When the reality of the situation is that you have a tremendous demand for reggae music on the continent. And
Yes.
when I went to Kenya, I was just in Nairobi alone, and I had to understand that Nairobi has over 15 million people. That's
Yes.
just
Yes.
only Nairobi. So if we have managed to survive in Jamaica with a population of 2.3 million, thereabout,
Which is growing now.
to
I think
do all
they
that
say it's
we
about
need
three
to do,
million now, isn't it? Yeah.
yes. So then it stands to reason that if we concentrate our energies on the continent, then many of our artisans and musicians should earn a tremendous more, and the Africans spend just like anybody else. And if the Europeans have found ways to earn money on the continent, why can't we? And this is just a thinking that we need to have, and this is why initiatives such as these have tremendous value, because
Yes.
it is a way in which we are bringing the people to the continent.
Yeah.
And we are also seeking to bring the continent
To
to the diaspora as well, because if when we look in North America and most of the industries that you see, believe it or
yes.
not, there are Africans who are at the top of the chain.
Yes. Yes.
So people have a tendency to want to say, oh, Africans are involved in nefarious activities and their name.
Yes.
That may be true, but you're also top of the class in academia, top of the class in some of the major tech companies. So I'm saying it is important that there's still expertise on the continent that we also need in diaspora.
Let me
So it's,
just
it's
interject.
a
Let me
symbiotic relationship.
yeah. Let me just interject right here. So the Jamaica Lumineers at gmail.com is the
Yes, it's the
email
email.
address that people
That's
can
correct.
contact. And if people want to go onto that trip there, as you can
Yeah.
see, the all-inclusive business trip, which is and of course it's going to be posted on my page, but as you can see, I'm just reading it. Registration deadline 7th of November 2021, payment required by 10th of November 2021. Business opportunities, connect with brothers and sisters, network, build legacy, trade mission. Now, where people will be traveling from with this,
We'll be
Mr. Don?
leaving from Kingston, from Norman
Mm,
Manley Airport, and we heading to Accra, Ghana.
yes, yes. And if someone is not in Jamaica, can they make that connection? Of course, we're in this virtual world. I mean,
Of course,
mm,
we're not making any connections.
yes,
Part of the challenge of this trip is to find a suitable flight to be
mm,
to be
bless you.
able to sorry to be able to take us. And many of the offers we had insisted that for fuel purposes we had to ensure that we do a connection. But
Yes,
I think for us, the leadership of the Jamaica Lumineers, we made it our point of duty to say that any voyage that we are going to embark on to take
yes.
us back to the motherland must take us back directly, because that was the very same way
I
our
see.
foreparents came from the continent
I see.
into the Caribbean.
Very
And we are
strategic.
not going
Yes,
to take any connections to have us reach our motherland. We want to leave the shores of Jamaica and go straight onto the
yes.
continent.
Yeah.
It's something
Power.
that we just,
Yeah.
it's not only just a journey to
Yeah.
link us, but it's also a spiritual journey for us.
Yes.
And it
And of
is
course, yeah,
very
please.
important.
And of course, this is a start of something which is powerful. There are many start. The Lumi is a start. The trip is a
Yes.
start.
Okay.
One could say these things have happened before, but hey, I believe in my personal belief in all things is that if you can help something, help it instead of tear it down. And I mean, be a plus factor than a minus
Yes.
factor. You know.
Yes.
Before we wrap up, I just want to go back to Lumi. How is the Lumi taking off in a way, and how can people sort of, well, ladies and gentlemen, I got some Lumi myself. You know what I mean?
Yes.
But what is the drive now? How can people get involved and get Lumi?
Um,
Yeah.
so the way currently, if you, it's a digital currency, but there is
Yes.
a fiat version. But
Yes.
like anything else, when it started, the fiat version, the digital currency took hold. And if
Yes.
you really check it out, the Lumi is perhaps one of the world's first digital currencies.
Mm,
Believe it or not, when it started. Um, if you are a holder of a device that is an Android device, then you
yes.
can simply go into your Google Play Store and you type ECOS, the number six, LUMI, and you'll see the app coming up and you
Yes.
download it and fill out all the requirements. In event that you don't have a Android device, then you have more of an Apple based device.
Yes.
Equally, you may have to do it via the website, which is platform.swiffin.com.
Yeah. But
So
that but
Swift,
that email address which I have there, that can actually people can tap into that email and ask all questions at the same time, isn't it?
yes, the Secretariat, we also feed questions as well in that regard.
Okay, just
So
yeah.
Swiffin really is the platform that facilitates the Lumi
Mm,
transaction. So just like blockchain that facilitates all the transactions of the Bitcoin,
mm,
it does the same thing. And again, Swiffin was a platform created by Africans from both the continent and the UK. They
mm,
have created that platform. So it facilitates all the transactions between entities. It has the latest technologies, all of the innovations that one would see today. It has it. So it is
mm.
something that we all can be proud of. Once you've downloaded your wallet, there is a global stimulus package that has been launched in 2020,
Yeah.
in October 2020.
That's
And
Swift
it
in there,
is,
yeah? Mm,
yes, that's correct. And it
mm.
goes up until October 2023.
Yes.
Every month, once you're the holder of a wallet, you will get 6.62 Lumi, which is equivalent to 100 US dollars.
So
So
therefore, yeah.
even if you don't do anything, there is means by which. And currently, there are people who have signed up to the revolution, who are doing business in some way, shape, or form, even at a small level, that
Yes.
are pricing some of their products in Lumi and are accepting Lumi for payment. Um, it's still in its embryonic stage, but
Mm,
it is growing steadily. I think right now our last check is that there has been $1 billion. One day there have been $1 billion worth of transaction in Lumi
mm,
taking place, and it is now in perhaps over 120 countries.
mm.
So it is spreading its tentacles all over the world. And SOAD has to take credit for it because SOAD continues to work and to be the the ground controller, to have
Mm.
people, the information disseminated through different initiatives and through our very functionaries that we have on the ground.
And one Lumi is 15, if I'm not mistaken.
15.62 US dollars for one Lumi. That's
Right.
correct.
Okay. Well, I've got that information right here, so persons can actually tap into that as well, which I'll share shortly. But listen, what's your last word, sir? In the sense of the message to the African diaspora. you know, in coming together, because you're not just talking about Lumi, you're not just talking about sword, but there's a burning thing which is within you, a passion for us
There
as a
is.
people to work together and come together.
It is really, and again, the more things change, the more they remain the same.
Mm,
Gavi told us a tree without its root is will never survive. And the
yeah,
continent is the motherland, and the continent is where we must all seek to go back. And this return may not necessarily be physical. This return could be economic. This return could be spiritual. This return could also be educational.
yes,
And there's much to learn. There's much to be acquired, and we must not be indifferent to it, because let us
hmm,
face it, it is our motherland. It is the cradle of civilization, and we should
yes.
never ever be indifferent to it. So let us all go back in one way, shape, or form.
Well, well, ladies and gentlemen, you have heard the the minister, and I'm just gonna spend a little moment and just recap by just giving you Jamaica Lumineers Secretariat. You can
Yes.
contact them by Jamaica Lumineers at gmail.com. I'll post it on my page as well, but there it
Thank
is
you.
for you to check it out. The website Eco6, it is there. You can just elaborate. What is that again, Mr.
That's
Brown?
the economic bloc that oversees SOA, the economic community of the sixth region. And you also can put up the website for SOA, so you can
Yeah,
see all of the things that we're doing, our magazines, we have our
yes.
website, we have ambassadors at large, we have a whole slew of programs that we're doing. We have a very
Hmm.
active restitution campaign that we have lobbied many European governments to start returning the artifacts. So you must be seeing
Yes,
this in the media. That's a
yes,
major thing that we're doing.
yes,
Restitution as well, which
yeah,
is to have many of the European countries return the artifacts back
yes.
to the continent. Because
Well,
why
I
are they in museums, anyways?
yes, yes. And I can say, ladies and gentlemen, a lot of the information is out there because I did my own research. So what is right there, very transparent, state of African diaspora, all the different um, prime ministers and persons who are part of the whole fabric and the whole structure. A lot of guys that I know want to tap into this. And I want to thank you so much, sir, for spending
Yes,
your
thank you.
Sunday evening chilling out with us in the UK here.
Yes, and I'm here in warm and sunny Jamaica.
Warm and sunny Jamaica. Well, it's a bit wet over here, but it's a bit warm still at the same time on the inside. But I want to thank you so much, Dr. Brown. I'm
It
listening.
was my pleasure, actually,
Yes,
and
yes.
I'm heartened and really honored to be doing this right at the cusp of the ending of
Black
Black
History Month.
History Month. So
Indeed.
it is not just strategic. It's not only timely. I think it is spiritual. It
It
is
is spiritual.
something that
Yes. Yes.
had just had to be done this way. And I thank you for giving us this opportunity.
Yes.
To
Because
you and
because yeah, because we have to, as I said with you before, we have to somehow move forward, even though
all.
you can recognize through the travels of Marcus Garvey, Malcolm X, and everybody. Sometimes it is
Yes.
within us that we have the difficulties, but at the same time, we are still moving forward as a
Yes,
people, as a
always.
nation, and we keep
As
moving
I say,
forward.
it is
Mm.
forward ever and backward never.
Backward never. I just sang the forward ever and a backward
Backward never.
never.
There you go.
Forward never and I know this song. It's the original. It's a watch man, I know. So I know everything. I know some people are gonna say, "Oh, here he goes again about here he." I was gonna say, "Here he goes again about Ochi."
Yes. True garden parish man. Never.
True God and Parish, original live and
Yes.
direct. You know what I'm saying? Well, listen, thank you again, sir, and thanks to Joan. I have to big up Joan Knight who made the connection. Someone I knew
Yes.
for years. Who was always
Indeed.
say, Silver, you need to check this out. Until finally
Yes.
I succumb.
I did. And I sincerely hope it had met all your requirements and all that your expectations.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Okay, so have a good evening and thank you so much
Thank
for that,
you.
sir.
My
All the
pleasure.
best.
All the
Thank you.
best to you
Cheers,
and
sir.
your listeners. Bye bye.
Thank you, sir. Okay, bye bye. Okay, well, ladies and gentlemen, you have heard, you have seen, and you have experienced this 1 hour of discussion with Mr. Kenyama Brown. I've actually named him Dr. Kenyama Brown. That's me. I believe we can actually name people. We don't have to wait for things to happen. We can actually honor our people each day. So learn about the Lumi, learn about SOAD, and learn about the African diaspora as we, as a people, pull together, work together, and have a great evening. Thank you so much, Diane. Thank you. And thank you for those who came on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram. Remember to like and subscribe to the show, SYLBOURNE TV. Every Sunday night, I'm going to try to bring in something which is empowering, something which is challenging, something that moves away from the viral nature, but something which is food that we can eat and to build us as a people, as an individual, you know, everyone. So there's something there for us. Okay, have a good night. May God bless you and have a smashing week this week. May this week be the best week of your life. Okay, peace out. Good night. Bye bye.